So, welcome everybody to this new venture that I'm doing with Bianca Marzouk, who is probably one of my favorite guests of everybody I've ever had on my show. So, we've decided that we're going to join forces and try to do our thing together. So, Bianca, why don't you say hello?
Hello, everyone. My intention is to deeply connect with Jennifer and with you and to have a juicy conversation.
I think that's going to happen. I'm pretty much sure that's in the cards. So, welcome, Jennifer Lovely.
Hello. Thank you. I'm so
Thank
happy to
you.
be here. Yes.
So, why don't you can you begin by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a mom of two grown adults, men, and I am a grandmother of a 6-month-old baby girl named Riley May. I am a coach, and I really like to bring embodiment and a little bit of our past work or past inner children, as well as our future into my coaching practice, as well as a recovery coach. I, by trade, am a Pilates instructor, a yoga teacher. I teach yoga for 12 step and recovery and yoga for teens. So a lot of what I do is from an embodied place because I believe that our body is the first point of entry into us really knowing who we are. And that's our access point. Um, what else? I'm an author. I have a book, Addiction Diaries, and then another book coming out in 2021. It'll be called The Men in My Bed. And what else do you want to know? I have currently been living on an island off the coast of Seattle for about 5 years, and I'm currently relocating down back to sunnier states. So that's a little bit about me. I'm sure there's a lot more, but for now, that's a good place of point of entry so that we can open this up freely.
Your two main topics that resonated with me when we spoke. One was recovery, which is my wheelhouse. So I thought we would be able to delve into that a little bit. And then you talked just about your evolving as a woman and where you're at now, as far as
Mm,
your conscious growth, which that's Bianca's wheelhouse.
awesome. Excited.
We do have a lot of things in common, actually. I'm a mother of two as well. And I also work primarily through the body. So I integrate somatic therapy into my coaching sessions. And I also really believe that, the body is where our healing begins. And this is where we create the strength in order to create the life that we want to. Yeah, I would really, really love to hear about your podcast.
Oh, yeah, wet pussy. I'm assuming that one. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So this was derived from I had gone down to Arizona for a week, and there was a point in my life where I was deeply, deeply in love with a young man at the age of 14 that you can be as deeply in love with, at the time. And he abruptly left my life. He left because his dad was in the service, and and I was devastated, and he was devastated, but I only kind of knew my devastation. And throughout my life there was kind of this missing piece, and my mom would go to psychics, and they would always tell her, oh, your daughter had this thing happen when she was 14. And I had a lot of things that happened to me when I was young, but I had never really, um, like, I didn't know that it was this thing at 14. And so years later, 31 years later, I run into this man now. And we ended up really connecting deeply. And we were able to go back and kind of retrace what the break was, but also the deep connection that we had with each other. And in the moment, I really felt like it was so juicy to go back and re-experience what 14 had experienced, and the pain and the love and the heartbreak. And it was wet, it was juicy, it was like this beautiful connection that we had. And when I came back, I was like, I want to feel like that all the time. I want to be in conversations with people. I want to be connecting with people from my wet pussy. And that's really how it derived. Like, because it was such a juicy experience. And it really allowed, without even me knowing it, allowed that part of my lower chakra, if you will, to even heal. And I began feeling more open and more um like can't even explain it, but it was like this opening happened because I had spent a good amount of time in my sexual trauma that I had as a young girl, and I really shut that part of my body down. And this allowed an opening and an experiencing of um my own pussy in a way that I had never experienced before. And it was like, oh, you're there. And if you've ever read that book, Pussy, she really talks about our pussies being the thing that guides us. It's like the star in the universe, the star in the sky that really guide us to really what we want to experience in our lives. And it was in that moment that I was really allowed to be more open. And I I didn't like shy away or push away, or it just became this like, this is a part of me. It integrated back into my being and into my body. It was a really beautiful experience. And so from there, it's a space for people to talk and share and connect with whatever, under the guise of like, what really brings you, what makes you wet, what is your life, what is the juicy part of your life. And that could be sex, and that could be an intellectual conversation, and that could be a body conversation. It could be all sorts of ways, but it's just a space for us to be open and not make it bad, wrong, or indifferent.
Yeah, that's so lovely.
Yeah.
I love so many things. So many thoughts come to mind. One thing that I would love to ask you is, how would you, like, if a woman hears this and she's like, okay, this is so far away from where I am right now, right? Like following my pussy, even feeling my pussy, being connected to her. What would you say to her? To like, what would be like the first small step towards a juicy life as you describe it?
Yeah. Well, first off, it's always like to be curious about what the resistance is, right?
Mm.
Like if I can't touch myself, if I can't be with myself, like what is that? If I can't look at myself, like what is the resistance there? And what I'm understanding more deeply about the body than I've ever is that repression is the killer of all things. And when we repress things, we get sick. And so it's like, so really understanding what that resistance is always a first start and a first place, I think, to kind of play with and really understand. And then from there is like beginning to feel into what does make you wet. Like really exploring, is it a conversation? Is it being with my friends? Is it in bed? Is it when I touch myself? Is it not when I touch myself? It's like exploring all of these parts of ourselves to begin to feel deeper into that juiciness. Because it's so funny. It's like somehow I think more in America. Bianca, where's your accent from?
Well, I'm originally from Germany.
Okay. So in Europe, I feel like there's more access to, because it's more talked about, it's more open to, that our pussies are not like a thing that we put in a drawer and then we take out at 9 o'clock at night when we're going to go sleep with our husband or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, right? It's like it's always with us. And and that conversation is the conversation that I want to be having, is like, that's the juicy part. It's always with us. So it's integrated into who our being is. And so I think that I would start there, is like, what is the resistance, or is there resistance? You know, because it's not something that's over here. It's like, it's something that is here, you know?
The title of the podcast is Wet Pussy. I mean, it's such a profound, provocative title. Why did you pick that title? Was it, did
Yeah.
you kind of want to make that kind of impact? Because when you talk, you make total sense of where you're coming from. Because they give the time and the attention to what you're actually saying, right? But if
Mhm.
I just see those two words, oh, I might tune in, but it's going to be with a different intent, probably. There's so much more depth to what you actually do, yet the title is just so provocative. Just why did you pick that title?
Well, I spent like the most of my life trying to be provocative, like
Mhm.
on purpose. It was because that was the only access to power that I knew. And until I integrated all the parts of me, I didn't know that the integrated parts were actually the powerful parts. And so the provocative part was like, I still like that part of myself, the provocativeness, but I wanted also there to be a richness and depthness in it. I used to, if you've ever read anything into like The Great Gatsby, Zelda, F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife, was quite provocative. And I really always was drawn to her provocativeness, because she was different than other people. And I always felt that way inside of myself. And so I wanted there to be provocativeness, and I wanted there to be depth, which is what the pussy is to me, is like, it's provocative. It has a lot of power, but it has a lot of depth. And if wielded, um, maybe in a unresponsible way, it can really mess us up as, women. And until we can really be with our pussies in a responsible way, I think that there's a lacking of integration. And so that was kind of my, and I knew it was going to be provocative. I mean, I think, and trust me, I get emails all the time, like, do you do this and do you do this? And it's like, and then when they watch the podcast, they realize that there's a lot more depth inside of it, but
Yeah.
there's a fierceness to it, right? And like, I think me getting really in touch with my own fierceness inside, that was part of it. And there's a snake, if you could see the snake, and if when a snake or a cobra opens up its mouth, it looks a little bit like the inside of a vagina. And so I really was trying to get like the fierceness as well as the depth as
I've never
well.
been blessed with the opportunity to compare the two, though, I have to say.
Well,
I'm living
look
a
it up.
sheltered life. I get out
Well,
more.
yeah, well, and I mean, and that just really like allows you to spend time, maybe you need to spend more time with a pussy, and you can really look at that and see, there's
Is
some
there
similar.
anybody out there that doesn't, by the way?
What'd you say?
Is there anybody out there that doesn't?
Doesn't see that, the
No,
similarity?
doesn't need to spend more time
Oh
there.
yeah, I maybe. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I love what you do, and I love the provocativeness. And I think that it's really like, it's time for humans to wake up about the power that we have. It's time for women, for men, for every human being to understand the power, and to also understand how much it's been suppressed. It's been thousands of years
Mm.
that this power has been suppressed in us. So it's not a surprise to me that we grow up and we're like, oh my God, like there's this part of me that I'm like not connecting to. And, and it's like, and that's why I feel also this, being really gentle with ourselves and being compassionate for the fact that we might be out of touch or might have lost touch is really, really important. And, yeah, and I really also see how it has this effect. It's like, it's this, it's just, it gives you this thing of like this little wake up, and then you're like, oh, okay. And then you're really attentive, right? So yeah, that's really beautiful. Another thing that came to mind as you were speaking was that comparison of the cobra. And what I've been realizing is the more I'm in tune, the more I see pussies everywhere in
Mm,
nature,
yeah.
right? Like I collect little pussy shells, and there's like pussies in trees and, in canyons and everywhere. You just see them everywhere. And it's like, it just feels like it's this beautiful expression of nature that makes so much sense to the divine, to express itself in this way.
Yeah.
Um,
I do the same thing. I love
yeah.
that. Yeah. I have a
Yeah.
group of women where we send each other pictures of like when we find pussies around the world. It's like, oh, and what's beautiful is like there's this waking up to the beauty of that. There's this waking up to like women are really going, yes, it's not a feminism thing. It's not it's not like a political thing. It's like really waking up to the power of that. And I have I deeply believe that when we can get in touch with that part of ourselves, our lives can be fully transformed. We can literally start to begin to dive into what we deeply want in this world from a different place. It's like a deep connection to the divine, as you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I really believe it's our most potent connection to the divine. It's
Mm.
like I really see our genitals as these little generators. Like we are, there's this life force energy that is everywhere, that is, animating all living creatures, everything that is. And we are like these generators, like these batteries. And through our genitals, we can really enhance this energy. We can, take in more and give out more. And yeah,
Yes.
such a powerful, powerful tool that we have there.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I'm feeling that resonant in my body.
And also that thing that you say, that how we move in life when we move from our pussy. So this is something that I really feel with the jade egg, for example, and that I also, that women say to me when working with me with the jade egg, is that when they are, you can do like specific practices, but you can also just wear the jade egg and walk around. And
Mhm.
it's like it's really like she's like, okay, no, go here, okay, do that, okay, like hug your partner, like, it's like you get these little messages, and it's almost like, in a spiritual sense, you would say your higher self is communicating to you through your pussy, or like you get these like really valuable pieces of information. um, and also how we can build that energy and then channel that into our creations, right? So like masturbation and then creation, like having a self pleasure session and then going and writing or going and creating something for our business. There's this creative energy that we can access through her that is so powerful.
Yeah, and somewhere along the line, not only did we lose that, well, I mean, I have lots of philosophical ideas about where we lost that, but somewhere along the line we lost that, and in that it's like we stopped being in touch with the feminine, and we had to jump into this masculine space. And now I really feel like she's really like, no, 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 come back. Like there's this like little bit of like, here, kitty, kitty, come back, and come back into herself. And that's what I feel like we're seeing more of.
Mm. And you said that you said you have philosophies around why we lost touch. I would love to hear what your ideas are on that.
Yeah. I mean, like when we just look back onto like like even religion, women were the ones that bit the apple and were the sinners, and right, like it just even in there, right, just from that point, there is we were wronged, we were bad, and like we've been trying to make up for it for all of this time. And somewhere along the line we the masculine, or the toxic masculine, came in and was like, no. And then we had to fight over men. We had to make, like, women had to literally fight, like, this, we have to be the ones that give the best blowjobs. We have to be the ones that cook the best dinners. We have to be the ones that do these things, because we have to because we might not get that man. And then suddenly the women are in opposition of one another. And now, Bianca, like you and I can sit here and, um, I gaze into each other's eyes, I feel like, and love each other from a deep place. And there not be competition. I feel like we're getting to that place where there's not a competition over men, and it's more of a uniting and coming together. It's like, how can I support you? Right? Because if you as the feminine are out there in the world doing beautiful things, then that means I'm out there in the world doing beautiful things, right? It's a together. And I just feel like more than anything, that we're ridding ourselves of the toxic femininity, the feminism, and we're bringing it together. And I feel as if we do that by connecting deeper to our pussies. Because when I know how to have pleasure, that doesn't, then I'm not worried like what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
that's a really good point. Yeah. I really feel almost even as though we've been systematically suppressed because we're so powerful.
Yeah.
Because a woman in her power can be a really scary thing.
Mm-hmm.
And and also because I really feel like we have this divine connection. We just, it's so easy for us to connect to the divine through our uterus and through our cervix, right? And through our menstruation and through giving birth and through cervical orgasms and all these things that are available to us, we have this really powerful access to divine energy that almost I feel has been taken from us in order to control us. Because if we are in this power, it's just harder to sell things to us. It's harder to make certain choices. Like when we're in this power, we're like really we become these powerful creators. And yeah, like looking back at history and how women, witches were burned, and all of these things that have been happening over the past few thousands of years. It just really feels like there was a plan there, you know? That's the feeling that I have. I have no proof for that, but yeah.
I agree. And also, um, witches hunt other witches, right? Like it's actually like, and that's what they kind of made us.
Mhm.
I was watching Maleficent with Angelina Jolie this weekend because somebody had said to watch it, and I was just stepping into, like, even when, if you haven't seen it, she loses her wings because of the patriarchy, right? She loses her wings, but even in that, she still is wanting to do good into the world, right? Like she still has the power to really create or not, or disintegrate. And that is what we have, I believe, as females, is we really have the power to create or decide, no, we're not going to co-create. And what does that mean? What does that mean for the world? That means like we get to control everything. And that's a really, like, to really understand that about yourself, that's like stepping into a new field of possibility, a new field of coming from a different power. It's not a, like power over, but a power inside of. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
So Jennifer, this is what fascinates me. Like I'm sitting here listening to you girls talk so openly, and it's amazing. And to actually be able to understand what you're saying and where you're coming from, it's an indication of what I've been missing for so long, like just a perspective,
Mm,
the feminine, not just the feminine perspective, as much as the female perspective about the feminine,
mhm,
right? And I think that you used the term when you said the toxic feminine. I've never heard that term before because I'm always hearing toxic masculine, right?
mhm,
And then now that it seems like the sway is coming, like almost like it's almost like this Me Too movement was here, and then it just comes because it has to take the stand and make noise, and then things kind of balance. People find their place in a working, way to communicate between the masculine and feminine, between male and female, in a way of better cohesion. Am I completely out of my mind and from left field with that, or?
No, it does feel like it's coming back around. But because women, I believe, are starting to realize that we are more powerful together than we are separate. Because what has happened, like what that whole Me Too thing, part of what was happening is you had the masculine, the toxic masculine coming in and and really playing us against each other, right? And until we got together, until we could come together and say, no, this is happening and this is not okay, until we could really begin to use our voices and speak that we don't need to, our pussies are powerful on their own, and we don't actually have to use them so that to please you or to get a job or to get this or to, to have this or have a man. We don't have to do that anymore. And what happened is, like, these women, we came together and said, no more. We're done with that. And I think also there's a level of rebirthing happen even inside of us, where we're also discovering like our pussies are more powerful than having to use a man to get somewhere, right? We're just powerful being who we are. And what was happening, I think, in the past with and Bianca, definitely jump in here, but we felt like we had to fight each other over a man, or we had to fight each other for a job, or we had to fight each other to look a certain way, or and kind of like what I was saying is, like, Bianca and I can come together and we can look at each other and see each other as beautiful women, and there's no competition here. We can honor the beauty and the light and the dark in each other without it having to be she's bad, she's right, I'm wrong, any of that. And that's where the toxic feminine really really was entered, I believe, in our life. And it started from a young age. And I will even go further, is that when we don't have deep connections to our mothers, when our mothers don't have their own internal power with their own bodies, that's how we learn this. We learn how to interact with other women by being interactive with our mamas. And if we don't have that, it's challenging for us to be with other women, I believe. I don't know, what's your perspective on that, Bianca?
Yeah, definitely. So healing the inner feminine has so much to do with healing the wounds that we have, that we carry from childhood with our moms, for sure. That's something that I see over and over again, and it's a really beautiful access also when working with women. Yeah, I mean, that thing of comparison is something that has been so hard for me for so many years. And I think I've come a really long way with that, because I always felt like if I'm in my light, if I'm in my radiance, I'm taking from others. So I would like dim down my light and be like, no, okay, like I don't want to hurt you, or just, don't look at me. And what I'm learning and have been learning over the past few years is that when I'm in my light, yes, there will be women that will feel triggered by that. But then the question is, how do I respond to that? Like, do I open my heart to her? Do I give her space? And do I like ground myself in my, like, anchor, ground in my own energy and anchor in that energy, and feel that my energy is protected and meet her from that loving place? Or do I engage in that energetic game that is happening there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and really seeing, like, really being very compassionate with that other woman, because I've totally been there. Like, when you feel not good about yourself and then you see somebody else in their light, then it's like, it's like it really takes from you. So, like, just bringing that awareness to that, what happens on the energetic level, I feel, is a really, really big thing.
Yeah.
Um,
And in your light, like, if I were to step into your light, when you're allowing yourself to expand and be that, the beauty is that I will then receive that light. I'll be a part of that light, right? It's like and that's the beauty of it. Instead of like, oh, I'm going to step in and I'm not taking from you. My hope is that I will be receiving it, but I'll also be a part of that light. And that I feel like is the thing that we didn't, the feminine didn't really understand for a long time, or we were fooled or told that it wasn't going to be that way. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. Does that help understand or answer your question, Scott?
As I'm listening to you both talk,
Hmm.
I'm thinking, because I've been through recovery with guys who, in a certain setting, have been able to kind of let go of some stuff, like personal stuff that's really stunted our growth as men. And it's so often just our relationship with our fathers. As a kid, as a child, we don't understand it. And then the masculinity comes in and a chip on your shoulder that you carry through life. And before you know it, the issue is way bigger than it ever had to be. But you were mentioning about this with the mother and the daughter type of thing, and I'm sitting there thinking, a mother can't really pass on what she's never been given, and that's what I had to come to terms with. Generations before us didn't have what we have,
Mm-mm.
so I mean, so many generations were so, and I won't even say broken because who knew? I mean, it hadn't evolved, so it wasn't even broken. It just was what it was,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So is this really just a matter of like we all have that on some level, some kind of disconnect somewhere with how it's not so gently given to us, because circumstances don't allow. So it's a matter of both you girls, in who I have so much respect for both you for both your journeys, just reclaiming your own sexuality
Mm.
and honoring that the way you choose to do that,
Yeah.
and just being a little maybe outspoken about it. And I think that's a good thing.
And the truth is like this is not um like when we talk about our mothers didn't give us this thing, like they didn't know. Like there's no there it doesn't, they're not wrong or bad or any of
Right.
that. You know what I mean? Right? Like
Yeah.
we don't know what we don't know. And um and on the same token, I have two boys. Like I represent what women are for them at a young age. And so if that gets a little dicey, then their experience of what a woman is going to be much different than maybe a young man who experienced a mom, being different, a different way. And so it's so fascinating. I feel like part of our journeys is to extricate ourselves from our parents. Like it's kind of part of like what we do. And one of my programs that I really teach is like reclaiming our grace. And reclaiming our grace really, it's like it's there. We just get to take it back. And part of that grace is owning our sexuality from a really beautiful, responsible place. I mean, you can be a sex worker and and that be your job and own it and be like, yes, like this, I love it. This is what I have to offer. Nothing wrong with that. You can be like, no, I'm going to be celibate and I'm just going to pleasure myself and give my life to God and be like, yes, and own it. And the idea is just to own who you are and own that grace in a way that serves you, right? It doesn't have to be judgment or right or wrong. And that's one of the things that we get so, I think, hooked in is like, it's the righteousness, right? Is like,
Yep.
Bianca's decided she's going to be this. And so I'm going to make her wrong for it. And it's because I have feelings about it or because I have shame around it. And that's part of what we do as humans, but what we have done
Yep.
with women, right? Is like, I'm going to shame Bianca because she's going to step into her power. It's like, no, she gets to be that. And I think that's what we're really coming to is that we are all allowing each other to step into, full integration of who we truly are without making the other one wrong. And that's the beauty of this work. That's the beauty of like the work that I do in the world is like, there's nothing wrong.
And so much of that also has so much to do with shadow work. So like, let's say my wild woman is in the shadow because like she's scary and she freaks the shit out of men
Yeah.
and people in general. And then, like I do so much work to suppress her. And then I see another woman who is in her wild woman and she's expressing that. So like it confronts me with that shadow that I'm trying to not see and trying to not have. and then that, I don't want to experience that, so I want to do everything for that other person to stop being in that, right? So I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to distance myself from that, and that's where the judgment comes in, and that's where the shaming comes in, right?
Yeah.
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 And as well with our expressiveness and our sexuality. So if we've learned as little girls that being expressive in our sexuality, touching our genitals or whatever, is shameful, then we're going to suppress that, and we're going to be like, oh, that's not safe, like mommy or daddy or whoever finds that really terrible, and like, I had no idea, but this is a really bad thing. And then we're like keeping that in the shadow, and then we see another woman in her power, and we're like, oh my god, she's in this thing, and
Yeah.
brings up this discomfort within us. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny to like having my podcast, The Wet Pussy, like it's so fascinating for the women who are like, I don't want to deal with that part because I don't want to even say the word. You can see how it brings up the stuff around it, right? It's just saying wet
Yeah.
pussy in general is like, oh, I don't want to say that. You can experience their judgment or their own shame in their own parts of their bodies. And I mean, I just want to dispel that. I mean, why, let's honor that part of our body.
Good for you. And I'll tell you why. I even spoke to Bianca. I'm wondering, how do I even broach this topic? How do I introduce this podcast and not until this is all going in, like that whole intricate thing, Bianca, that you just went through, the shadow and all of that. I'm just saying to myself, man, this is so complex over. You feel a little threatened. I mean, like we could break that down to really, simple stuff, but we make it into this whole, like our heads can go to places, right? So I'm thinking like this, I'm a big fan of like taking the stigmas out of these words and just normalizing context.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, don't use the F bomb. You know what? Maybe there is a more elaborate way to be more eloquent. But sometimes I want to let you know how pissed off I am.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's fuck this. There's no better way to say that, right? So you're just using like real, um, not even, yes, it's provocative, but you're just using everyday language and how it's given this. I'll tell you, so I watched two women have a conversation about the word cunt.
Mm-hmm.
I watched these. This is like, you can't use that word in any positive context, right? And they went into the history of the word, how centuries and centuries ago, this was a term of endearment,
Mm-hmm.
and it's evolved into what it is. And I'm just saying now, just to even watch this conversation, you're like, you're looking around, you know what I mean? It's just like an awkward. But when you listen to the actual content of the conversation, and this is my big thing, have the conversation, talk about it, just put it out there, normalize this stuff because everyone has their own, like, just have a conversation. It's
Mm.
that simple. That's why we're doing this. And I'm getting so much out of just listening to you both and where you're
Yeah.
coming from because I respect who you are. And then this is a part of who you are. I don't have to sit here and deny like this part of you exists. And you don't have to come off in front like it you can't say that in front of me. You know what I mean? Like, let's just like put all pretense aside, like three adults here and have a conversation, which is what we're doing.
Well, really what I love too, Scott, is that um what I hear is that you are deeply interested and connected into your own feminine so that you can have this conversation. And that
It's
is
been a process. That's
yeah.
a process, though. And I've mentioned it in talking with women in general. But here's the thing: it's just like life happens, man. And certain things were shown to me, and I was living a life, and masculinity is all I knew. And just when you keep banging your head into a wall, and you still have a head, but now it's really swollen and disfigured, and you're tired and you're exhausted and you can't think straight. And then things become pointed out to you. I had a woman therapist, and then I met this yoga teacher who became like a mentor to me, and then this little girl, I mean, I'm getting all this stuff from women. I watched my mom get really sick and fight like I didn't even know anyone could fight just to stay alive. And really, like I saw a level of strength. I thought I got all of this from my dad, and I never saw things that way. So it's just my own ignorance. So
Yeah.
it's almost like, okay, I'm learning a lot from women, and I had it pointed out to me about just energy, right? So yeah, just so you learn, so that it just makes this an easier conversation for me to be a part of and to understand. And as a guy, to be in a relationship that's going to be more positive and more potentially better with a woman, it's better to, how can it's just mathematics. Makes more sense if you know them a little bit better, if you
Yeah.
understand a little bit better, and, and shut the fuck up and listen once in a while. It's been not one of my strongest points in life. But yeah, so
And the beautiful thing is that um, it's clear that Bianca has done work in her own personal life and her shadows and her inner children, and it's clear that I have. So her and I can come together and be like, hi, you're beautiful, oh, I love you, and yes, I see you, and it not be it not be strange, where sometimes with women,
yeah,
when we haven't done our personal work with our shadow, our inner children, our mom stuff, our dad stuff, there's conflict, right? There's like a put
the
like a
potential is certainly
yeah,
there for conflict. Yeah,
yeah. And so the more that we can do our own internal work, shadow work, the deeper that we can connect, the deeper we can change the world, the deeper we can be more powerful together.
And also, one thing that has kind of been circulating my mind right now is how um, that suppression of the feminine is, it's not just that women are suppressed, it's that the feminine qualities are suppressed in all of us. And it's, things such as our ways of knowing, right? So I can intuitively know something. I can know something because it came through me from the ocean, or a tree told me. And like, to some people that might seem totally insane, because there's only one way of knowing, and it's very masculine, you know. And I feel that honoring that, and realizing when we say things like, oh, don't be a pussy, or like those little things that show us that, the most powerful on this planet is being seen as a weakness, like understanding those things, and really finding a common ground in that, in how powerful the feminine actually is within us. I think that's really something that really connects us and really empowers us, as no matter what our gender or sexual orientation is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting how we can we have been suppressed in the feminine way of the intuition, right, for so long. And I've known things, like internally known things, since I was young, almost like I would say, I remember standing in the kitchen saying, the phone's ringing, and my parents going, Jen, the phone's not ringing. And then all of a sudden the phone ringing, and they were like, what's going on? And that knowing has always been inside of me. It's an inside of all of us. And but we're told that that's wrong, or that's weird, or don't listen to that, or
Scary.
it's scary. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 So I love the knowing, and men have it too. But men have been told, well, it's only through knowledge, or it's only through our fighting, or a more masculine way to their knowing, but their knowing is the same. And so allowing themselves to come to that, and really I feel like the feminine is now like grabbing a hold of that and saying, hey, come, like, allow yourself to be with that. It's really been a beautiful experience to watch men step deeper into that part of themselves, like, oh, like, it's been so beautiful to watch that, and not be shunned, and not be wronged. So it's been really lovely too.
both of you women are warriors, man. You've been through what you've been. That's why I have to respect that for both of you. I know your stories. So to be where you are is really profound. I think based on what you just said, and prior to that, what you said, Bianca, is that the feminine has to be introduced so it can earn its rightful place in the balance of the masculine and the feminine, because how would you have gotten through what you've gotten through without the masculine in you? And
Mm.
you too, Bianca. Like you don't get there without having that real strength of fighting back and standing up and all that. And now to be able to then to bring that into your personal balance, however you want to see it and be, is to be able to just see it all for what it is and to acknowledge it and just own your personal truth. I mean,
Yeah.
so, it's amazing.
I think that that's a really good point, that it's already within us. And for example, the male clients that I have, I really do a lot of work on helping them to connect to the feminine within them. And
Mhm.
I do things with them like breathe into your energetic womb, you
Yeah.
know, breathe into her, feel your energetic womb, feel your energetic cervix, and now listen to the messages that she has for you. And the messages that they get are just blowing my mind, because there's so much wisdom there. It's really like things like connect to your softness, and like flow, and all of those beautiful things that connect you to your feminine. So yeah, it's just such a powerful thing to understand that it's all within us. And
Well,
it's just,
I
yeah.
love that. Because their energetic womb, I really feel like, is their prostate. Think
Mm.
about like being with a man and having felt their prostate and experience and how aroused they are in that, and they get like, right. And so and to feel their prostate is through the anal part of their, right, through, and that is like for straight men, heterosexual men, that could be like, oh, no, I've got homophobia, or oh, I don't do that, right. But that is really where I believe that their energetic womb is like, it's sensitive. It's like the place that, connects deeper inside of them. And, I mean, that may just be a place to look when you're speaking to your men. Um, but I really feel like that's their place. And like, if we could all get in touch with that, our conversations would be much different. They would be having conversations like Bianca and I.
For me, it was just learning. Like, it started out of just wanting to be more understanding and making a conscious effort to be compassionate. And then when a situation would present itself, I would slip into mode of confrontation and arrogance and all this other stuff that had nothing to do with compassion. And then after you calm down, you see things different. You're going like, so I had to really learn how to pay attention to that. And when it was told to me it was a feminine trait, by a woman, my therapist, and I'm just like, she goes, oh, now you don't want it so bad because and it's not even that, it's not the word feminine that bothers you. It's the stigma that's attached to the word feminine. So this is how I get hit in the head with a brick, right? She goes, okay, so you came in here with a certain intention and you say this is very important to you. And now you're going to reject going in the direction to fix that, not because of the word feminine, but the stigma that's attached to a word. A stigma attached to a word is going to redirect your intention. Think
Mhm.
about that. We'll see you next Tuesday. And like, what you want to? Yeah, I just felt like an idiot. So then, they gave me a week to process that. I'm just saying, this is just fucking logic. Like, grow up, dude. Like, so if you're not secure in your masculinity, I'm still not ready to even understand what she's talking about. But
Mhm.
after, like, I don't give a shit anymore. You get to a certain point, you just live your life and you just like, okay, you just want to learn. I just want to understand. I just want to learn. So then it takes that much attention to focus on that. So then you can find your balance. But let me tell you something. While I'm doing this show, I'm talking to women about this and getting all different perspectives, right? All different insights. And then I would talk to some hardcore guys, and just me sitting, across from uh, just like a tough guy, and just I'll mention the word feminine, and a cloud comes right over the conversations, just like this uncomfortability that you could probably see if you just look like that. Dude, what happened to you, man? Just that, just uncomfortability, right? So you
Yeah.
just understand what the whole word and all the context that comes with it. And it's just a fucking word. That's why I would do it.
I mean, I think ultimately you know, what we do, and you know about this, Scott, and and Bianca, I don't know your story, but I imagine to get to where you are today, there was a lot of recovery work that has to be done. And when I say recovery, maybe it's not in the form of a 12-step program, but the recovery is from our old beliefs
Yep.
or our old family beliefs, or it's like that is part of recovery work, right? Even in 12 step, I mean, it's part of like this old belief system that no longer are serving us. At some point it kept us safe and it kept us okay, but then we get to a place where it's like, this is not serving me anymore. So it sounds like you had a moment where you not being in touch with more of your feminine, it wasn't serving you to not be in touch with it. You needed to be in touch with it for your life to shift in a new direction.
It always has to happen the way it happened. However it happened, we don't get to change that anyway. So,
No, no,
mm.
no. But we all are recovering from our beliefs, right? And so, I think, and our beliefs in who we are in the world and how powerful we are. I mean, I think recovery is such a huge part of um like just our lives, right? And it doesn't have to be in the form of a 12-step program, but there is recovery that we're all trying to do. I mean, our country is in the midst of trying to recover. Let's hope. you know
I tell you what, I'll just speak for you, Jennifer. Here, Bianca, we both wish we were in Costa Rica right now with you.
One thing that I wanted to say is that when it comes to recovery, I think that a really important aspect is, that guy that you were talking about, Scott, has no idea that he's not in touch with his feminine. So it's like just that awareness, that consciousness to these things, that is the first step, and that is so crucial. So yeah, I think that in so many cases it's just we just get lost in life and the things that because it's hard. A fish doesn't know what water is because
water. Yeah.
That's a good one. Wow, going real deep, Bianca.
So yeah, my story, I mean, I experienced a lot of violence growing up. I was exposed to a highly sadistic person for a couple of years of my life. I was scared for my life, for many, many years. And
did you say a high sadistic person?
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to make sure I heard you. Did you say a high sadistic person?
Highly sadistic person.
Highly, sorry. Okay, yes.
Yeah, so there was a lot of violence, a lot of psychological abuse. There was I saw my mom being raped on a regular basis, and we were not able to protect ourselves from this guy because he was breaking into our house and climbing in from the window. So there was this constant and in the end we had to flee because he wanted to kill us. So there was this deep, deep fear, this deep terror for my life that I was carrying with me for so many years. And my mom, like, her way to process this trauma, which was really deep for her, was heroin addiction. So by the age of 8, I realized that my mom was addicted to heroin and she might die from this addiction. Which luckily didn't happen. She's right here with me in Costa Rica right now. So, and she's, she is recovered from this, which is, she's such a powerful woman. Yeah, I just, at some point in my 20s, I realized that I was completely out of my body. Like, I wasn't able to feel anything. I was completely out of touch with my anger. I was just sad and sad and sad and sad, and I had no idea why. And, yeah, I discovered somatic therapy and like really got back into my body, and through that rediscovered my sexuality, which was completely gone. Right, because there was also sexual abuse on the way, like different scenarios, and I was just so out of touch. And coming back home into my body and realizing, like, wow, there's all this energy here, and like, there's my pussy and she wants things, and there's my heart, and like really stepping back into this power was something that just radically changed me from this like frightened little being to like somebody that's in my power and can do the things in life that I really deeply desire. So
Mhm.
yeah, this was a really, really short version.
You know, I really do believe that our stories are an act of generosity. And in that we because we never know the thing that is going to be said that's going to allow somebody to go on down the path
Yep.
to begin the process of
Yep.
healing and the process of recovering and all of that. And so it's so generous, right? And I also at the same time believe that sharing our story can be, not everybody deserves to know our story in the world, right? Like unsafe people aren't or don't get to know our story. And so there's this fine balance, but in this conversation, it was generous to be able to for you to share that and allow me into your space of pain. And I hear that it is that pain has mostly left, and I imagine that it also can be retriggered and come back occasionally, because that pain doesn't ever really fully, I don't think, leave us, right? I know for myself, right? Like that doesn't.
Goes in remission, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
goes to remission, and we continue to do our work, and then there's moments where it comes up again, and every time it comes up, it's an opportunity for us to dive deeper into the wound and deeper. And I like for the longest time I used to go to a therapist, and I would have my massage therapist meet me there, and she would do this thing of like brushing out my solar plexus, of really like, because this is where all this stuff was stuck. And it worked and it didn't work. But I'll tell you, when I really got in touch with my little children and really allowed them the voices to speak of the terrors that I felt, and the humiliations and the hurt and the sadness and the anger, then it went away. That pain that was sitting here in my body for so long, that it went away after that. And when I do work with people, it's like, it's so interesting. I'll ask them, where do you feel it? And almost always it's here in that solar plexus. And it's such an interesting, fascinating, our bodies are so fascinating in that way, is that that's like where they want to speak. And I was talking to my coach, and we were talking today about going to see a shaman, and how we go out there and we seek the gurus and we seek the people. And this, Bianca, because I mean, it sounds like you're in that world, right? We like, tell us what we need, right? And if we could stop, and if we could breathe, and if we could get in touch with this and those and all of our little people that are inside of us, those are our shamans. Those are the ones that heal us. Those are the ones that have the answers to a lot of this. And I find that is probably the most profound work, is really diving deep into those parts of ourselves. I don't know if you experience that in your somatic work that you have done as
So
well.
much, so
Yeah.
much. And also when people like, I feel it in my inside of myself, but also when I listen to other people's inner children or inner masculine, inner feminine, inner protectors, I'm like writing everything down. Like it's knowledge for myself as well. It's so interesting that you mentioned that thing with the solar plexus, because what I feel when I work with women that have issues to connect to their sexuality, often what happens is that when they're having sex or when they're masturbating, self-pleasuring, that they tense this area. There's like, they fold their body in this way. And then what happens is that their sexual energy actually doesn't flow from their sexual center all throughout their entire body and out of their body, right? They don't have that flow of energy because there's this, so it's like, somehow the solar plexus is like that part that connects like the upper body and the lower body. Like there's something there.
Yeah.
Something that you said really resonated, and I wanted to ask you like how exactly that looked, when you said that your boys were speaking for your pain. What exactly was happening there? I'm really curious.
When my boys were speaking of my pain.
Yeah, you said that that you were trying to heal your pain, and then you had those your little boys, and then they were speaking, and then that
Oh,
was
no, I don't, if I said that, I'm sorry. My boys didn't speak of my pain, but my little children inside of me are the ones that were speaking of my pain. And when
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, my
Yeah.
boys, um, it's interesting too that my kids are in recovery from heroin and methamphetamine, and and that was a grueling time in my life. But it's funny, like their recovery or their addiction triggered all of my stuff, and like this is the process that I've been able to come out and be as open as I am with life and my healing and my sexuality and all of these parts, because inside of their addiction and my addiction to their addiction, I had to really go deep within myself and go, what the fuck? Like, what does this all mean? What does this mean about me? What does it not mean about me? Who have I been for them? Who have I not been for them? And it's interesting because I can tell by the women that they choose and they've chosen, one relates to my light, one relates to my shadow. And it's fascinating to, when I had this epiphany, I was like, because I struggled with their relationships a little bit, who they were choosing and what was going on in the relationships. And then I go, oh, there's a light and there's some of my shadow. And you know what? I love both of those parts of myself.
Sometimes
And
that shadow looks pretty damn good.
well, thank you. And when I could accept that part of myself, I could love all of it unconditionally. I no longer had that judgment or anything that was in the way. It was like, oh, of course I love you. It was really like this like moment. It actually brings emotion up for me when I think about that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Wow.
Yeah.
Bianca, what did we get into here? This is like unbelievable. I mean, we haven't even begun. Flattered, honored
Oh,
to be in this conversation with both of you. This is a really cool experience. And wow.
yeah.
Because I have the respect I have for both of you. That's what I mean. I mean, I'll just say something really quick. You mentioned recovery, and we have to go through this stuff, and we all have. Each one of us have gone through our journeys. One of the reasons I stayed out there as long as I have is because my pride would not let me get truly honest.
Mm,
And the price I had to pay for that, and you don't get decades back. They don't, we don't get to relive decades of your life. And when you just realize the magnitude of that, you just see how important it is to make what's ever left count, and then you just pay attention. Just pay attention. This is one thing that I struggle with in my life. Pay attention, and these messages are coming, and you're both giving me so much from a selfish perspective right now. Is I just got so much,
mm,
to walk away from this conversation with so much more than I came in with. I heard something last night. The definition of hell is when you die, the person you were meets the person you could have been.
mhm,
I got chills when I said it because that hit me right in my solar plexus. I was like, wow, you both have come through so much. And we don't get to choose what happens, but how we handle it. That's so beautiful and so remarkable. And you both mentioned the word grace. That's the most attractive quality I think a person can have when it's true.
mm.
And you're both abundant in that, which makes me just feel like, the fuck am I doing in this conversation? Who let me in here? I'm just really flattered and honored. I
Mm.
just can't help but be a little bit better coming out of it. And, that's a win-win, you know?
Well, thank you for facilitating it and reaching out to me and having the conversations and the connection. Like that's one thing that I just feel so excited about, is that it's allowing me to step into a place of a different place of knowing, and like inviting more into my life, more beauty, more knowledge, more understanding, more light, like, and even understanding my own darkness. Like all of this is so rich, and it's so juicy, and it's so wet, right? So yeah, like this is like where I want to spend my life, is in these conversations, and experiencing these types of not only conversations but connections, because in these conversations is actually freedom. It's freedom for us to fully live, fully express ourselves in however we want to be, and it doesn't get much better than that. So thank you for this connection.
I'm so happy that I'm here, and just so beautiful to connect to you guys heart to heart and just have a real conversation about these things. It just feels so good to this core
Yeah.
of mine.
It does. Yes. Thank you so much. And how about you come on to the Wet Pussy podcast and we have more of this conversation, Bianca?
No, when we Bianca. I thought you wanted a fan of wet pussy on your show. I don't know. Okay, all right.
Yeah, you can do it too after, Scott. So
Namaste, ladies.
namaste. Thank you.
Thank you for this.
Thank you so much.